Okay, Hare Krishna, dear ladies, welcome to the February Urban Devi Sangha and Women's Discussion Group. A special welcome to those joining us for the first time. If you are joining us for the first time, please write it in the chat so that we can all say hello. We're a very friendly group. My name is Damodar Priya Devi Dasi, and I co-host this monthly gathering with our dear Rukmini Walker and Surabhi Govinda Devi Dasi. So let me introduce our guest speaker for today, though she need not any introduction, I'm sure. So Jahnavi Harrison is a musician, a writer, an artist, and a practitioner of bhakti yoga. She spent her formative years at Bhaktivedanta Manor in England in a rich environment where mantra chanting and the sacred art were a part of everyday life. With a background in Western and Eastern classical music and dance, she has tried to pursue a path of self-realization and service through artistic expression. For nearly 20 years, she has offered her voice and violin playing in the performance of original spiritual music and call and response mantra kirtan in diverse venues all over the world. She aspires to create art and facilitate experiences which heal, uplift, and nourish the spirit. Now based in California, she regularly leads live gatherings, sound bath experiences, concerts, and retreats. And today, Jahnavi is going to be speaking on the topic of Into the Forest, a creative journey, where she's going to share about her journey in creating her spiritual music album, Into the Forest. And she's going to delve into the stories, the symbolism, the poetry that inspired it. But she's also going to help us find our inspiration for our own creativity, our self-expression, and our prayer. So thank you so much, Jahnavi, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Okay, so you finish? You did your introductions and
Yes,
everything else?
you're all set.
Okay. I was frantically trying to restart and get back in with you all. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here this morning. Very earlier in the morning for me in California. Um, so I am going to try and share my screen and share a presentation with you this morning. We already had a couple glitches, but hopefully everything will go well. And this topic, for me, it was a little challenging thinking about what exactly I wanted to share because I guess it's something that's been, the various strands of it connected to nature, to writing, to personal creativity, to meditation. There's so many kind of directions you can go with it. And I'm hoping that what I'm going to share is somewhat coherent. So let's begin. And thank you so much again for making the time. Oh, I have to open it. Okay, fingers crossed this will work. So just as I'm waiting for that to start, I wanted to ask, what do the words into the forest evoke for you? Into the forest. Could even close your eyes for a moment and just repeat them and see what that evokes in your heart. All right, so I am going to be released from the crutch of my visual presentation, and I'm going to go without it, but I'm going to still follow what I wanted to share, and maybe it'll be better as a result. So these words into the forest, for me, they evoke a lifetime of exploring the relationship with nature. And that I wanted to share a little bit about that. When I sat down to think about this presentation, I was thinking, well, am I sharing about that, or am I sharing about the album that I just came out with? Because that's like a whole different topic. And then I realized, well, I'm not sure what everybody else will think, and maybe it's really both. So I wanted to share a little bit about my relationship with nature first, not because my relationship with nature is so special or important. Everybody has a relationship with nature in a different way, but sometimes I really feel hearing about someone's personal story can inspire or enable us to look at something from a different perspective, maybe reanimate our own relationship that we already have. So my my relationship with nature, I have to thank my parents for that, because Some of you may be familiar with my mother and father. I had a picture of them to show you, but maybe I'll send you the presentation later. My dad grew up in a place in a part of England called Cornwall, which is very rural, very rugged. Um, he said most young people leave Cornwall because they're just bored of like the beautiful ocean and the fields of sheep, and they're just like, I want to go to the city. So he escaped to London when he was 16, and that's how he found Krishna. But he used to ride his bike just 5 minutes down to the ocean, and he said he used to go out and sit on a rock in the middle of the ocean, or sometimes he used to sit in a tree and just think about life. And he had this song that he used to sing to himself, that he's a tree boy. Anyway, hopefully he doesn't mind that I shared that. So he had a really personal, sweet relationship with nature. And my mom grew up in like the prairies of Canada, Winnipeg, where nature is both expansive and also can be very harsh. Any of you know that part of the world, the winters are extremely harsh. You have to basically stay indoors for months. Otherwise, you can get hypothermia. But also, you have this huge expanse of sky and the prairies, and all of the nature, that all of the natural relationship that offers. She's also a gardening addict, and she has, oh, someone is a Winnipeg girl. That's great. Um, yeah, she's a really addicted to gardening, and she happened to move to England, about 40 years ago. So she's in a country which everybody is slightly obsessed with their garden. And so growing up, there was always a very active relationship with both being in the wilderness of nature and also, this very kind of hands in the soil type of relationship. Actually, as a side note, I think my parents could always see that, this how important this relationship is for the mind, for the body. And I grew up as a very anxious kind of child, especially when I had to leave the temple community that was sort of a shelter bubble for me for the first 10 years of my life. And I remember two particular times that I was having sort of like a bit of a panic attack. One time my dad made me hug the tree in the garden, in our garden. He said, "This tree is your friend. This tree has seen you at every moment, that we've lived in this house. Just give it a hug and just receive comfort." And my dad is not like a tree hugging hippie type of person. So that was interesting to me. And another time, actually, my dad too, which is funny because, again, my mom is much more like the earth mother type. I was like panicking about something and getting in that extreme, mental state. And he made me put my hand in a pot, in a flower pot that didn't happen to have anything growing in it at the time. He said, "Just put your hand in the soil, put your hand in the earth." And it actually worked. Um, I was panicking because I had to teach a class and I thought that I was sick, and there was all this, and then I ended up going and I did it, so it actually worked. So that's a little intro to my parents. They both used to take us out into the fields and the forest, and we were lucky enough to grow up. Many people know that I grew up at a place called Bhaktivedanta Manor in England, just outside of London. And that in itself is it's sort of farmland, it's surrounded by farmland, but we didn't live on the property where we lived just down the road. It's a protected area of land it's called Greenbelt. So they protect the fields and forests from being overdeveloped. So as a result, we had fields and forests to walk in that we didn't have to get in a car and drive anywhere. We could just walk down the road and take shelter of that. And as I grew older, and even as the practice of japa became mantra meditation on beads became more of an active part of my life, um, I would take shelter of that a lot, and in the most beautiful of times and also the most stressful or sad of times. Um, my mom also used to take me on walks. They were called like, they were kind of like learning about herbs, as you say in America, herbs, we say in England, um, identifying herbs. So when I was quite young, um, a guide would take you through a place, a kind of wild area, or even a public park in England, and they would tell you about all the wild plants, and you would take a cutting and stick it in a little book and write something about it. So yeah, I had a few pages to show you, but like I said, I'll share that with you. So this is kind of the backdrop for a bit of a relationship. And of course, growing up as a devotee of Krishna, you know that it has so much harmony and resonance because Krishna, I mean, most of Krishna's leelas that are celebrated and remembered take place in a rural setting, many of them in the forest. So, you know, we were growing up in an atmosphere where trees and fields were all around and hearing about Krishna and Balaram and their friends and the cows and all of the things that they were doing in the same type of natural landscape, albeit maybe with some types of trees that didn't grow in England, but you could really imagine and envision yourself there. Even as I got older, you know, I'd find that sometimes I'd go into a beautiful forest and those stories would just immediately come to mind because of the connection of the landscape. So, when a friend years ago shared this quote with me, and into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul, I was like, what is that? Who said that? And he said it, well, I don't think he actually knew. Um, and I looked it up, and it was a writer called John Muir, who is who was an American conservationist and so much more. He's credited with being responsible for the idea of the national parks in America. Of course, there's a little bit of a different lens you can look at that through because especially since being in California and going to some of the parks here, and you have Muir Woods here, you realize some of the problematic elements, but we won't go into that. Another topic. But for whatever the gift that he gave in his life, he was a real advocate of going into nature, and not just going into nature, but the so he grew up as quite a strict, I think it's called Calvinist. He was born in Scotland, and his family practiced a quite strict form of Christianity, which was very, very much, I think he felt restrictive, but it was what he was used to. And he was a very, very intelligent. He was he was kind of like a natural engineer. He would invent things, and as the journey of his life took him, he ended up, you know, as many people do, we grow out of the perhaps little box of what we grew up in was as we get exposed to people who have different ideas, different life experience, and you know, after many different phases of that, he ended up staying in a cabin in the woods in California, I believe. And he was sort of like almost like a sage staying out in the woods and having this very wild and um, unfiltered experience, direct experience with nature. And he really felt that some of his most profound experiences of God and his own being were found in that place. It was almost like nature became his place of worship, his temple to offer his prayers. So I wanted to share a poem with you that I found many years ago. This is by I think an English poet called Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and he writes about finding a temple in nature. It may indeed be fantasy when I essay to draw from all created things deep, heartfelt, inward joy that closely clings, and trace in leaves and flowers that round me lie lessons of love and earnest piety. So let it be, and if the wide world rings in mock of this belief it brings, nor fear, nor grief, nor vain perplexity, so will I build my altar in the fields, and the blue sky my fretted dome shall be, and the sweet fragrance that the wildflower yields shall be the incense I will yield to thee, thee only God, and thou shalt not despise even me, the priest of this poor sacrifice. Such a beautiful poem. Um, my favorite lines are the blue sky, my fretted dome shall be, like the ceiling of the temple is the blue sky. The poem is called To Nature by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And I love how he says the sweet fragrance of the wildflower shall be the incense that I give to thee, and I am a priest of a poor sacrifice. Just a simple wildflower reminds me of in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, just a leaf, a flower, even some water. What a so-called poor offering, but yet with love can be the most valuable, the most precious. Um, so great saints and sages have, for millennia, found connection to God in nature. I won't probably share all the poems that I compiled for you. Probably one benefit of not having my presentation, I'm realizing that it was probably too long for the time that we had. Actually, I should do a time check because of all of our technical difficulties. Maybe Damodar
We're
Priya,
still
can you
good. We're
remind me?
like 15 minutes or so. We're good.
What time should I break for the breakout question? Just so
I like in 15 minutes or so.
in
15,
15
20
minutes?
minutes. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
you still have
26.
time.
Okay, you'll give me yeah.
Yeah,
All
I'll give
right,
you a warning.
just so I can keep an eye. So when I was a teenager, I discovered the poetry of most of us in school. If we go to English language school, well, ironically, because haiku is not an English language type of poetry, but for whatever reason, English teachers love to make us learn how to do haiku when we're young. And as a a young adult, I was studying English language and creative writing at university, and I rediscovered these genres of poetry, um, and more so than even when you're young, you kind of tend to focus on this, oh, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, and you try and like cram stuff into that, and then look what I made. Um, but I discovered particularly the writings of a poet called Basho, who's one of the most famous poets of Japan. And um, the meditative quality of his poetry really spoke to me. They're like sutras, I grew up with these. I grew up with text being in the form of verses, a compact little seed, and so I was, quite fascinated by it. And not only that, but of course, a lot of these poems have so much connection to Buddhist teachings. So one of his poems um, connected with nature that I love. Um, Summer grasses, all that remains of great soldiers' imperial dreams. So I love the imagery here of a field with, in the summer the grasses are just blowing, and the quiet, just the sound of the grass moving, and you think about the dreams that human beings have to build things, to create things, to conquer things, and then eventually the body goes, we die, and the soldiers are probably buried under the soil or cremated, and just the summer grasses remain. Nature so enduring. So nature also, and these poems too, allow us to reflect and focus on the changing of the seasons and um, how that has resonance for our own life. It's an effortless connection as the more that you tune into it. So all of this to say, all of this to give a backdrop that in my life, especially when I was at university, and sometimes I think doing a degree at university, it's just sort of an excuse to focus on a particular thing for a period of time without feeling guilty that you're not doing something more productive. I don't know, maybe that's my particular degree, reading and writing and, just sort of writing poems and sitting in places, thinking about things. Um, it's hard sometimes to feel like you have I mean, at least for me, it was difficult. It's more and more difficult to feel like I have the excuse to sit and read or just sit and write about things, especially as the digital age has encroached more and more in our life, social media and things like that. But at that time, I started to write a lot of poems. I always had, but it started to be something more free flowing and spontaneous. And it was right after my degree that Rukmini Devi's son, Gauravani, actually somehow we had a happenstance, not so coincidental, I'm sure, meeting, and the part of my life that had nurtured a love for music and playing the violin and singing. I loved singing, but I didn't really sing publicly at that time. That sort of all happened as a part of that journey. Somehow all of these elements kind of flowed together. So I ended up traveling and performing with Gauravani and his band at the time as Kindred Spirits for several years. And that was like a different kind of university. That was a whole education in itself. And so many things that I didn't know that I didn't know. I learned about in that time, learned about different countries and different perspectives, um, different ways of viewing the world. I got to see different aspects of nature. And another thing that happened was I had the very beginnings of writing songs. So some of you may know the album that I released many years ago called Like a River to the Sea, another nature nature analogy, of course, comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from Kunti Devi's prayers. And at that time, I knew I liked to write poems. I knew I could write poems, but I didn't think I knew how to write a song. I was like, no, I don't know how to do that. And I had written this poem many years ago, after visiting the sacred town of Vrindavan after many years. Vrindavan is the place of Krishna, on this in this earthly realm. And it's a place that I visited as a 7-year-old and was completely charmed by, these dusty lanes with, you could hear peacocks and parrots and monkeys. And it was just such a beautiful place. And I went back after 15 years, something like that, as a 21-year-old. And I was totally shocked at how much urban development had happened, how different it looked. What to speak of now. So I wrote this poem, and along with, somehow sharing that with Gauravani, even I remember Rukmini Devi reading it and saying, she said, Gauravani told me about this poem that you wrote. And I remember you encouraging me very specifically about it. It's the water of encouragement that gives life to the seeds that can one day flower in different ways that we never knew. So that was the beginning of my experience of songwriting. Gauravani helped me to turn those words into a song, and that relationship eventually led many years later, almost 10 years later, to other projects. I did an EP with an artist called Willow, called Rise. That was another experience for me of like songwriting, by a lot of, it was like a time pressure, and somehow these songs came out. I'm just making sure that I'm okay on time. And and then during the COVID years, I was very lucky to be, at least for the first, I think, 4 months of the COVID time, I was with my family in England. I sort of got stranded there. Maybe that was really meant to be. Um, I actually got COVID in the very first wave, and I was sick on the flight I was supposed to take back to America. I was sick and I felt too sick to take the flight back to America. I I was, I was trying to make myself ready to leave to the airport, and I just didn't feel well enough. So I ended up staying home and quarantining with my family. And at that time, we were doing kirtan every day online, sharing that with people. But I was also walking in the fields and forest every day. I had that gift. So many thoughts and poems and songs were born at that time. And as it happened, those pieces took a long time to coalesce and come into form as a project, so much so that it only got released in November last year. It was a really different type of project for me to pursue. It was very meditative. It didn't have the spirit of like kind of catching people's attention, or it was just very personal. And I really felt as I was producing it, I have no idea if anybody will will want to listen to this or hear this, but it feels like an important journey for me to go on to share it. So um, one of the some of the songs in particular, I just wanted to speak to maybe two of the songs in case you get time to go and listen to it, or maybe if you've heard it already. Um, one of the songs, "The Day the Darkness Fell," was about actually not. It wasn't about the COVID time. It was about a very difficult time in my life that had happened maybe 6, 7 years beforehand. This time brought about a crisis of faith, and I wanted to speak about it because I feel like the crisis of faith or the dark night of the soul is something that on a path of um, spiritual life, the path of devotion or seeking a relationship with God, this is something that most people will experience probably at least once, maybe, as some have told me, multiple times. And it was something I didn't really know about. At least I wasn't expecting it to happen in my life. And it was so frightening when it did. I really felt like the 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 metaphorical, carpet got pulled from under my feet, and I just felt so lost. So this song is about that time, and the turning point in the song that speaks about how I started to come out of that. There was one thing that really, really helped me, and this was reading the songs of an author called Bhaktivedanta Thakur. He's a poet from who was active during the 1800s in West Bengal. He's a teacher of bhakti yoga and a very prominent guru and master, really, of bhakti yoga. And his writings have been so powerful in my life. So I was listening to these, and then at the same time, someone that really cares about me told me, "Did you know that in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that the the calling of the birds is the whispers of Krishna, God's voice, in the singing of the birds." So I started to listen to the birds in that way as I would hear them around, and it gave me so much comfort and solace. Um, the final song and the final thing I wanted to speak about before we go into the breakout rooms is a song called "I Trust You." So this was the words for this came for me as an attempt at spontaneous prayer. I don't know if any of you have, you know, I don't know if, I think it's very different depending on, how you grow up, what religious framework you grow up being exposed to. Some religious traditions, I think, more encourage spontaneous prayer. I think others um, refer back to texts, sacred texts more. We recite, we memorize prayers of great saints. Sometimes those might be in other languages. And at least for me, I think that in my life, that created a little bit of a discomfort in expressing my own words. It was not as familiar for me. I was very familiar with singing kirtan, singing God's names, very familiar with prayers in Sanskrit or Bengali, less comfortable or confident to express my own words and especially to do that spontaneously. I'm a person who used to be scared of talking on the phone because it felt too spontaneous. I felt like I'm more comfortable writing things down. So this song, I Trust You, came about on a walk into those very same fields. On Christmas morning in 2019, I went on a walk really early in the morning to watch the sunrise. And I stood there as the sun was rising. And it was a weird moment in my life. I feel like my life is full of weird moments, and maybe life is just weird for a lot of us. So many just moments where you're like, huh, what is this meant to mean? What is going on here? So I thought I don't know what I meant to do next. And I thought, well, let me just try. I had been exposed a little more to um, people who were more comfortable speaking spontaneously in their own language, especially in the context of Christian prayer or mystic prayer. And I thought, let me just stand here and try to say these words as the sun rises to that beloved friend, Lord of my heart. So these words came out. I trust you. I trust your plan for me. I trust you. Your hand is all I see. And they resonated with me, and I kind of carried them as I went home. And I thought, maybe these could be a song. I would never have thought that if I hadn't had some background connection and confidence that words could turn into a song. Um, but then I held on to them, and as the creative process goes, you plant some seeds of an idea by at least considering them to have the importance to put it down on a piece of paper or write it down in your phone. And sometimes not all seeds grow. Sometimes you plant a seed and for whatever reason it doesn't grow. But those seeds started to grow and eventually became these songs that have been released now. And I wanted to show you the music video, but if you get a chance to check it out, that we made a music video for the "I Trust You" song, which in a studio in Los Angeles recreates this moment of the sunrise, thousands and thousands of miles away in England on Christmas morning. We didn't recreate the coldness of it because I'm wearing like a short sleeve t-shirt in the video. Looks a little bit more appealing. But yeah, it's a very music video because my back is turned to the camera and I'm just watching the sun come up, and you're there in that moment watching the sun with me and you know expressing these words. Hopefully I wanted to share it as an affirmation for myself and for others, and also as an example of how your own words of prayer are important, and they don't all need to be shared with others, but sometimes they may be, and sometimes that may give someone else a light in the darkness or a hand to hold on to. So I think if I am right, I may have gotten to our time for our breakout question.
Yeah, you actually did perfectly, Jahnavi.
Oh, great.
And
Wow.
well, see, Krishna's really, you said that you were uncomfortable sometimes even talking on the phone because it felt too spontaneous. And then Krishna was like,
Yeah.
you're going to have to be super spontaneous.
I know Krishna loves to make me uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable about everything, and I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and
I hear you.
it
Not
works
to
out
worry.
eventually. Yeah.
So I'm just going to pause the recording. But for those of us that are
Hmm.
joining us on YouTube, I just want to share the breakout question or the reflection question so you can do it on your own. So our reflection question today is, are you comfortable at expressing your own words, feelings, thoughts in the form of prayer? If not, why? Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So we are in our Q&A and reflection section. So this is your opportunity to raise a virtual hand and ask a question of Jahnavi Harrison, or if you felt inspired by the reflection question and your time in the breakout rooms, you can also share a reflection as well. So please go ahead and raise your virtual hand who would like to share first. It was such a beautiful reflection question about prayer. And if, oh, there we go, Shichileka, I can always count on you not to be shy. Please go ahead.
Wow, I am shy, but yeah, thank you, Jahnavi, for this beautiful, beautiful talk, very inspiring. And yes, we were sharing that. Well, in my case, it is when I am in distress, when I recognize myself like powerless, that I can actually um it is like I have my defenses up. I try, Rukmini said in a very beautiful way, like when we try to barricade ourselves from the magic of Krishna. But it is when I recognize, okay, I cannot handle this. The situation is way beyond my abilities, my capacity, like yeah, my skills. So there's where the magic happens, and there's where I think, as an artist, also I think that my true voice comes out, and there's where the prayers, yeah, are born. So thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much, Jalika. And I see that Sadvi Devidasi has her hand up, formerly Scarlett. Congratulations.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, and thank you very, very much for a wonderful, wonderful meeting here. I'm a mother of 6 adult children. Almost all of you is in the age of my children. So for me, I, of course, when I'm in distress or something, I pray. I talk to Lord about my feeling, how I feel, and so on. But I never tell my children when I am in distress or when I am feeling that I'm almost losing the control of my mind, of my nerve, and so on. I don't tell them. Why I don't do it? As I said, I'm a mother, and as a mother, I know how they are, how they think, how they talk, how they believe. I don't want to say something to affect them in that manner that they say something. Because, I mean, unfortunately, there are people that they say, if there is a God, why did it? If there is a God, why da. I am afraid that my children will say something like that if I say how much pain I have. So that's why I don't tell them. I just keep it for myself. I pray to Lord. I ask Lord to help me, but I never tell my children about how much pain I have. But I teach them prayer help, meditation help, and so on and so on. But I don't let them see how much pain I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sadvi, for sharing that personal experience. We know how much you've struggled in terms of like your health challenges and sort. Okay, I'm so glad to see that so many people have reflections and questions. So Ishvari, Sundari, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. It's always hard to be here at this day, but I'm glad that I'm here today. I was sharing with the group, of course I pray and it's heartfelt, but I keep it really simple because I'm really not good at poetry, or I'm not very creative. And that's okay, because I have 2 adult children who are very creative. So Krishna just spread it on to them. I'm good. And like I was saying, I had a poetry project in high school, and I think the only way I got an A was because the teacher felt bad for me. However, I am so truly grateful for all the beautiful, creative people in the world, like Jahnavi Harrison and so many people probably in this group that I don't know, for sharing your songs and your poetry and your prayers through that, because I could live through that. Because when I do hear it, everything that I actually think that I could write in poetry but can't, I hear it through you and through your songs, and inspiring. And sometimes I just get happy and want to get up and dance with it. Sometimes I just want to cry with it. Sometimes I just want to get in the car. And my favorite thing is to take road trips, and I could just hear this beautiful music, and that is super inspiring. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for me not having to write poetry because it's really not that good. Hey, Krishna.
All right, well,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Ishri Sundri, for being so vulnerable about that. Jahnavi, did you have a reflection on that you want to share?
Oh, I just realized that I've been sharing back with everyone who's been speaking, and I realized I was muted. So
Oh no, I'm so
no, I
sorry
just
about that.
didn't notice. It's fine. No, I just wanted to say I really relate to that, to music and other people's prayers, giving voice to what we're feeling that we don't know how to express, and listening in the car. I love doing that, just going for a drive and becoming immersed. That's amazing.
Thank you, Genevieve. So we'll make sure you're unmuted after the next share so you can reflect back.
Mhm.
Okay, so next we have Magdalena. Ooh, beautiful name.
Thank you. Yeah, I shared that I feel like I'm on the journey of getting more comfortable with sharing prayer because I've been struggling with the word a bit, just struggling around religion and how I grew up um and I've been writing stories and poems and also songs ever since I can remember, but I've never felt comfortable sharing those words in a like publicly. And I was wondering if you have any reflections on how to overcome that perfectionist side of I have to wait with sharing until it's perfect.
Mm.
And just if there's any words of wisdom that you have on how to just start sharing it.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Magdalena. It's really great to see you here as well,
Yes.
because you're on my Patreon. Um, yeah, well, it's actually interesting you say that, because it makes me realize, I wonder if the question also framed it in a certain way, because I don't think that, I don't think it's an imperative that we have to share our own private words of prayer with others. I definitely could understand why someone would feel, a little held back. I do think some people will struggle even to just put them into voice in a spontaneous way. But specifically to your question, I think just in the same way that, if you're not used to taking like a creative writing class and reading your words in front of other students and having them critiqued, but then after, 4 or 5 times of doing it, you start to feel comfortable with the fact that it might not be your best work and someone might have an opinion about it, but you feel comfortable because if you're in an environment, especially where there's constructive feedback, you know that it's going to help to make it stronger. So I think the practice of, you said you're a writer, you write poems and stories for so many years. The practice of sharing usually improves whatever we're doing, because we get it doesn't have to be feedback like, oh, that was good or that was bad, but if we could share it as a form of service, like that song, I Trust You, I didn't know how people would receive it, but I thought the fact that I struggled to come out with these words, and it may help someone else to voice these words who doesn't know who finds it difficult to bring them out. That's a good enough reason to release it and put it out into the world. And believe me, I had a lot of inhibitions about doing it. So I think that could be a way, thinking about it as a service.
Thank you so much, Jahnavi. And we actually have a question sent to me directly. So he says, this is Sheila. She did say I can
Mhm.
share her name. She says,
Mhm.
this is my first time joining, so I'm a little overwhelmed, hence her private thoughts. Her
Mhm.
question is, when you pray, what Krishna form do you pray to? She said, I can't bring myself to pray to baby Krishna of my troubles, as he's just a baby. And I feel that as a mother, I can only love the baby Krishna. So what form do you pray to?
Mm, what a beautiful question. I don't, I mean, it's quite personal, I guess, because it's like what goes on in our innermost space. I don't think that it always is the same. I think it really depends on the context. I mean, if I was in the temple and I was standing in front of the altar and the deity of Krishna is there, I would be relating with that particular form and image of Krishna. If it was, a particular kind of festival day commemorating Krishna in a particular way, the prayer might come in that way. Sometimes well, very often in kirtan, in the context of kirtan, it's not necessarily a form of Krishna. It's almost connection. The prayer is the connection to the sound vibration of the repetition of these divine names, and it's abstract in the sense that the sound is not an experience with form, and yet the name belongs to someone, and so it's an experience of connection through the name. So yeah, it's not always the same for me, but I could understand why praying to a little baby might seem difficult. Yeah, I think it's also an evolving experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that imagery. Thank you, Sheila. Of like trying to pray for baby Krishna, and he's just a baby. So we have Kelly. Kelly, would you like to share?
Hare Krishna. Oh my goodness. I had the great pleasure, Jahnavi, of seeing you in New York when you first came back after COVID. I think on the tour that you did Rise, and fairly new to Bhakti. I just sang that out. First of all, just seeing your vulnerability and the sincerity of your prayers, and I know it was hard for you, was just so incredibly beautiful. And the love in the room was so moving. I just sang that album over and over again. And I Trust You is more than at least 4 times a week I'm singing that song because it so perfectly articulates. So thank you for your service and your example for all of us. And then I just also, we have a friend who is in our small breakout groups really having a very difficult day. And I just hoped we could all send her extra love, because the strength to come on when you're struggling, right? That's when we're most ready, and it's so difficult. So I hope we all can just send her some love. Thank you so much for your service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And yes, sending your friends so much love. I think what I've learned in the darkest times, where my tendency is to want to withdraw and isolate, is that reaching out for friends and community in a way that feels comfortable enough. It's not everybody, but it's the greatest source of light and strength. And I hope that you feel that from all of us today. I'm feeling it in my own way from all of you. So thank you so much.
I love that. I love the whole kind of prayer as yes, reaching out for help, but also being ready to kind of take in that love. And we had some comments from Quincy saying that she listens to the whole album Rise most days, and that it fills her heart.
Wow.
Yeah. And so if anybody else has any questions or reflections, please raise your virtual hand. While folks are kind of getting themselves ready, I just wanted to share, since I didn't get to go into the breakout rooms, I just wanted to share, Jahnavi, that I've had a lot of health problems. I've been very ill since 2018. And your music, especially your kirtans, have really helped me through. And I actually had a magical moment where I was going to have an operation. And, they give you the whole spiel, like you may leave your body, like this is really severe, like what do you want us to do to help you kind of feel comfortable in the procedure? And I just said, can we play some music? And they were like, yeah, we could play some music. And I chose the Radhadesh Mellows kirtan from 2020, the really long one that was like an hour that you played. And they actually did it. They played the kirtan as I was wheeled into the OR. I heard the singing of the holy names in your voice. And afterwards, I actually got feedback from the doctor that the nurses and everybody that was in the OR were just so moved to be in that space for the whole 2 hours or whatever. They just kept playing it. And they said it was just so moving to them.
Wow.
So I just wanted to thank you for being an instrument of Krishna's mercy and love in that way, that we can kind of share it in moments that can be very, if we see it that way, it could be frightening, but it was actually really beautiful. And I felt really held. And I was like, it's okay. If I leave my body during this operation, I'll be fine. So thank you so much. And We actually had a note from Nicole. She said, Jahnavi, you're by far my most played artist. You have helped me through so much, and I really cannot thank you enough for sharing your heart with us. So,
wow.
just
Thank you. I'm feeling overwhelmed hearing all of this. It's really amazing, amazing. Yeah.
So we actually had a question from Duren. She says, was the order of songs of Into the Forest intentional? Because it seems to pull one along on a spiritual journey.
Thank you for that beautiful question. Yeah, I went back and forth about the order because I wanted the order to kind of tell a story, go through a story. And so, yeah, it was intentional. I was hoping that it all came together fine. And I feel like it was the right order. So yes, it does go on this journey of sort of, oh, I realized actually there was something I completely missed out in my talk, but I guess just to briefly say that the concept of the Into the Forest was not just about a connection to nature, but envisioning our inner world, that space within the heart, as a forest. So not just nature being a place out there, but going into the forest, going within the heart, and really making that connection with this place of tranquility and vibrancy and beauty, and a place where ultimately, spirit resides. And so the first track is Into the Forest, and it leads you into that journey, and then everything else that follows, yes, goes through some difficult times and ends on a very hopeful note, I hope. So yeah, it was fully intentional.
That's great. That's beautiful. And we have Harshika with her hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. It's just been wonderful attending this. Jahnavi, I thank you for being so open about having a crisis of faith and building art and sort of resources for people from that. Question is, if a crisis of faith is something that is going to happen, and I see that I'm not like a perfect devotee, so of course a crisis of faith is something that will happen or has potential to. How do I prepare myself for it, or what do I do to from your experience, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, the unexpected nature of it, it's almost like, the things that we can control, the things that we can have certainty about, it's reassuring because at least we know what to do. But when something just takes you by surprise, whether that may be illness or, accident or delays or computer, crashing and all of that, you can't prepare because you didn't know it was going to happen. So I think one of the things that I learned through that experience that gave so much strength, which I didn't value in the same way before, was friends that I could really share my heart with. And in this case, there were two friends in particular that they went out of their way to really seek me out in that sort of very isolated, dark space. And they were just with me, whatever I had to share, even if I just needed to cry. But I think in the good times, we can remember that we really need to treasure and value those people in our life that are there for us through whatever, ups and downs. And if we can find even one friend like that we should really hold on to them and not take it for granted, because it's, yeah, we need those hearts in our life. And I do think that also, I feel there's something mystical in the experience because we don't always know what we need, and usually what we need does get kind of sent at different points, including those experiences themselves. They're somehow meant for our growth and development. But yeah, it's scary to think about. I know. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, Mr.
I love that, Jahnavi, because I've always heard, and especially, with health challenges or other challenges in general, that sometimes we pray for what we want, but Krishna or God sends us what we need. Yeah. And we have to kind of have our eyes open to how our prayers are being answered, sometimes in unexpected ways. So thank you for that reminder. Does Anybody else have a question or a share? We have time for one more before we give it over to our dear Rukmini Walker, who, by the way, we have these monthly gatherings, once a month, and it's thanks to her initiative that we're able to have this. So please look at the chat if this is something you want to continue. We have WhatsApp groups, we have email newsletters that you can sign up for. This is a great opportunity to kind of hear from other women that are in the Bhakti path, that to inspire us to support each other. A lot of times we have women who come for the first time and make new friends through these kind of Zoom gatherings. So we're still having those go on. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any other questions or comments coming up.
Damodar Priya,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, I was going to say, Rukmini, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm just on my phone, so I can't see all of you, and I'm sorry I can't be seeing your faces, but Jahnavi, thank you so much. And I just feel like, your authenticity and your open-heartedness to share your struggles. And even, when you say that, oh, I'm one of those people who's always in anxiety or in anxiety to talk on the phone, you just really give us all permission to just, to be who we are and to reach out from the place where we are, and, letting us know that it's okay, that, your reflections about nature and leaning into friends and other people. I think this is just so helpful, and I just feel like really giving us permission to just go into that place of not knowing and then just reaching out to try to trust. So just so grateful to you for
thank you so much
for your lived example of wise beyond your years, and just giving us all permission to just take each next step. I love your poetry, and I hope you'll share the poems that you had wanted to put in the visuals, because
definitely
all
I will.
of that's so helpful. So I think you're an angelic mentor for all of us, no matter what age we are, of how to just be ourselves and know and trust that Krishna is accepting me for who I am, and I can reach out and try to give my love, So I'm so grateful to you. And I wanted
we actually have one hand raised by Karen. Can we squeeze her in before you do your final announcements? Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Sorry for not figuring out the raising hand button in time. Thank you, Rukmini, for reminding me about this. I'm so happy that I got to join. And Jahnavi, I just wanted to mention that it's so good to see you. And I mentioned in the chat that I do play your Balm album for acupuncture patients, every single one of them. And every single one of them has a transcendental experience that I completely attribute to your your album. So yeah, so it's like, doing healing magic out into the world and for all different random people. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Karen. Wow, so grateful.
Yeah, taking it out into the world and giving people access and opening your heart and helping us all to open even sometimes my heart feels so frozen, but thank you for giving us permission to try to thaw out our frozen hearts in so many ways. And
that's exactly what you're doing. We're all just trying to hang on to your shawl and come along the ride with you.
So I just feel like, you're just so wise and so open-hearted and so trusting, and thank you all for teaching us, no matter who we are, how old we are. And I'm so grateful to you for being here. I was so hesitant to ask you because you're so busy and all over the world, but Damodar Priya just kept saying, well, we want Jahnavi, so ask her. So grateful for you making the time. And
thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tell you all, we have our next Urban Devi session, and please join us. Please sign up. Join our WhatsApp group so you can get the messages, because it's not always the same Sunday, because festivals come up, and things come up, life comes up, so it's different Sundays, but once a month we meet. And the next one is Sunday, March 23rd, so please mark your calendars. And we have a wonderful Vaishnavi lady who'll be speaking next time. She's also a mother of Vishwambar, so a mother of a great kirtanier. Her name is Ananga Manjari. And she's going to speak about evolution through beyond chaos and take us through, help us get focused on essential spiritual purpose of our human journey, especially during turbulent times. And I hope she'll also speak a bit about, she was caring for Prabhupada's sister in her last days. And I don't even think they were speaking the same language, but they were communicating so beautifully. She was there in Mayapur when Prabhupada's sister was failing in her health, and Ananga Manjari was caring for her. So I'm going to message her to please speak a bit about that as well. So please join us next month on March 23rd. And once again, thank you, dear Jahnavi, for being with us. And we're looking forward to seeing your prayers and hearing more of your music and all the prayers that you were referencing. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Jahnavi, you're muted.
I was just saying thank you so much to Rukmini, to everybody here. It's been such a nourishing experience to join, and it's reminded me that I have to take more advantage to connect with all of you through this Sangha, and hopefully I can join the next one as well and share in whatever ways of service in the future. So it's really amazing. So many beautiful souls from so many different places connected in this way. Thank you. Thank you for creating this space. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here. And we're so grateful and hope to see you next month again.